Imagine spending years pouring your sweat, money, and dreams into building a quiet little workshop in your own backyard, the kind of place where you can tinker with ideas, design inventions, and finally escape the chaos of the world for a few hours, only to have your peace shattered by a single person who thrives on control, and in my case, that person was the HOA Karen. A woman who seemed to patrol the neighborhood like a self-appointed sheriff with her clipboard, her constantly wagging finger. And her endless obsession with rules that no one else even cared about, and it all started one ordinary morning when I was in my workshop refining a new prototype, headphones on, lost in concentration, when suddenly the door burst open and there she was, not knocking, not calling, but barging in like she owned the place, screaming about unauthorized construction and unlicensed operations. As if my modest workshop was some massive illegal factory polluting the skies, and while I tried to calmly explain that I had every permit I needed, she wouldn't hear it, her voice climbing higher, her threats piling up, promising she'd get the HOA to fine me into the ground and shut me down permanently. But here's the part she didn't know. This wasn't just a hobby shed, this was where I created designs that had already been patented and licensed out to multiple companies, ideas that had changed industries. And tucked in my files was something that would turn the tables in a way she could never have imagined, because while she was raving about property values and neighborhood aesthetics, I was holding the legal patent for the very architectural design her home was built upon, a design I'd created years earlier as part of a contract project, one I owned the rights to, which meant every house in this neighborhood that followed that blueprint, including hers, was technically using my intellectual property under a community license, and as much as I wanted to laugh in her face that very moment, I let her rant. I let her storm out with her empty threats, because I knew the day she made it official with the HOA would be the day I'd reveal my trump card, and sure enough, 2 weeks later, I received a formal notice from the HOA demanding I cease operations and dismantle my workshop within 10 days or face thousands of dollars in daily fines, and that was my cue, because instead of panicking, I pulled out the patent documents, the licensing agreements, and the legal protections that gave me more leverage than she could dream of, and I called an emergency HOA meeting, which Karen strutted into like a queen entering her court, smirking as if victory was already hers, sitting tall with her arms crossed while the rest of the board shuffled nervously, and as she began her speech about community standards and violations, I stood up, cleared my throat, and laid the thick file on the table, explaining in simple terms that not only was my workshop fully permitted and legal, but the very houses they all lived in, including Karen's, were standing on a design patented by me, one that I had generously allowed the development company to use under a broad community license, but one I could just as easily revoke if the terms were violated, and the room went dead silent, the smugness evaporating from her face as she realized for the first time that she wasn't holding the power here, I was, because if the HOA pursued their threat to shut down my workshop, I could legally pursue infringement claims that might make every homeowner, including Karen, liable for using my design without proper authorization, and the look on her face was priceless, her jaw dropping, her voice stammering as she tried to deny it, but the documents were clear, stamped and signed, and the board members, who had always tolerated her bossiness with reluctant obedience, now looked at her not as a leader but as a liability, whispering among themselves, sweating at the thought of lawsuits, and within minutes the entire tone of the meeting shifted, board members suddenly backpedaling, insisting they had no issue with my workshop, that they respected my rights, that they wanted to work together peacefully, but I wasn't about to let the moment pass, so I leaned forward and explained that I was more than willing to continue granting the community license for their homes, but only under the condition that the HOA formally recognized my workshop as an authorized, permanent fixture, beyond the reach of their petty fines and enforcement, a sanctuary protected by contract, and as much as Karen protested, the board members overruled her, signing the resolution on the spot, effectively locking her out of any future attempts to attack me, and when the meeting adjourned, she stormed out, humiliated, her power shattered, her reputation in ruins. While I walked back to my workshop not just as a hobbyist but as the man who held the legal backbone of the entire neighborhood. And the best part was what came next, because word of the confrontation spread like wildfire. Neighbors who had been bullied by her for years came to thank me, some even laughing at the irony. One even joked, "She tried to shut down the guy who owns her roof." and it became a running gag in the neighborhood, her once feared presence reduced to whispers and chuckles behind closed doors. And I went back to my workshop with more determination than ever, fueled not by revenge but by the satisfaction of knowing that creativity and persistence had triumphed over arrogance and control. And in the months that followed, my inventions only grew, my licenses expanded, and every time I walked past Karen's house, I couldn't help but smile at the thought that she lived every day under the roof of a design she once tried to use against me, a roof I created, a roof she couldn't escape, a roof that reminded her that sometimes the people you underestimate the most are the ones who hold the real power. And while she still peeked through her blinds and muttered under her breath, everyone knew her reign of petty tyranny was over, not with a bang, but with the quiet, undeniable authority of a single sheet of paper that carried more weight than all her threats combined. And in the end, the ultimate twist wasn't just that I kept my workshop, it was that I proved once and for all that no matter how loud someone shouts or how many rules they wave around, true ownership, true vision, and true resilience will always win the day.